Hi, my name is Stuart Webb, and I'm a senior lecturer in applied linguistics and TESOL at Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand. However, before that, I taught English as a foreign language for many years in Japan and China. So hopefully I can relate to some of the questions that you might have about uh, my article, uh, The Effects of Pre-Learning Vocabulary on Reading Comprehension and Writing. Now, the rationale for this study was that the learning from word pairs or word cards technique has been found to be very effective in past research. Typically, we see that some learners can learn a large number of words in a very short period of time. In my research, one of the things that I've tried to do is to see to what extent other aspects of knowledge, other types of knowledge besides being able to link the second language form of a word to its meaning, such as grammatical functions or collocations, are acquired through learning from word pairs or word cards. So really here, trying to see if students can gain a more comprehensive knowledge of words than just form and meaning. And some of my previous studies showed that this was the case, that students would learn quite a lot about a word through the word card technique. So that's fine and good still. But I think then as teachers, we all have that experience where students may know the form and meaning of a lot of words, but they're unable to use those words or really able to understand those words when they're encountered. So in this study, I wanted to see whether students could understand those words effectively in written text and whether they could use those words. That was part of the justification. The second part of the justification was that the word card technique had also shown that the direction of learning was an important factor. If you learned receptively, where you see the uh, first language, sorry, where you see the second language form and have to recall the first language meaning, that usually leads to better receptive knowledge than productive knowledge. And in contrast, if you learn productively, if you see the first language meaning and have to recall the second language form, that typically leads to greater productive knowledge. So in terms of language skills, this would suggest that learning receptively would lead to greater knowledge in terms of reading comprehension than learning productively. And vice versa. If you learn productively, you would be able to use the words more effectively than if you learn receptively. So that seemed to have a very useful in the classroom implication, which I was interested in investigating. So those were the two reasons I thought that this would be useful to look at. I'm not going to go into the results because you have the paper to look at. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those online later on in the online portion of this project. But I would like to note a couple of the limitations, I think, with the research. And primarily, I think it's important to think about the limitations of the tests. These tests are fairly narrow in scope. The reading comprehension test is a true-false test, where you have a 50% chance of getting the answer wrong. The productive test is a picture description test, where students had to write words in a sentence. Now, the reason for these tests was that if you have much larger tests, for example, if you had a reading comprehension test where the word is in a longer passage, it's very hard to isolate that vocabulary factor. Similarly, if you ask students to include words in an essay, it's very hard sometimes for students to do that task. It's not a natural task of writing an essay. So these tasks were much more narrow. But I think that's a genuine limitation of the study, and it would be useful to look at more ecologically valid tests. although I think it will be also quite difficult to find an effect for vocabulary as it's just one factor in many here. Uh, so that's a brief introduction to myself and to the study. I hope you find some value from the research, and uh, good luck with it. Thank you.